Welcome back, folks. This is Infinite Podcast, and as always, I'm here with Simon diving into the deep ends of thought. Today, we're eyeballing this idea of a panopticon in modern times. Basically, are we all stuck in an invisible prison, constantly being watched? Bentham might have been onto something there. So, Simon, do we just love being watched, or what's the deal here?
Love being watched. More like we've got no choice. Seriously, though, who really signs up for this reality TV show called Life Under Surveillance, right? It's like every street corner has a camera now. We're all kind of starring in our own little episode of the world's most boring documentaries.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like we're the main character but forgot to audition. Nowadays, I buy a sandwich, and somewhere there's footage of me debating turkey versus ham for 10 minutes. Riveting stuff. Makes you wonder, do we need an Oscar category for Best Unwitting Actor in a Surveillance Clip?
Definitely. Sign me up for Most Indecisive Buyer. I'd win big time. But it's like wild how we're all cool with being tracked 24/7, you know? Everyone's just chilling like, oh yeah, stalk my every move, that's fine, while posting a selfie with their latte art. It's like, congrats everyone, we've volunteered to live in a high-tech panopticon. Plot twist. It's not that deluxe after all, huh?
You're not wrong, but it's like maybe we aren't just rolling over, right? People get this trade-off. They give a slice of privacy away, but get convenience and safety in return. And let's be real, who reads those privacy policies anyway? Pages longer than a grocery receipt. Maybe folks think if they've got nothing to hide, who cares who's peeking, you know? But is that comfort zone turning into a danger zone without us noticing?
Hold up though, Joe. Not everyone's on board with this whole surveillance shindig. There's a bunch of peeps pushing back, and for good reasons. We're not all just saying, take my data, please. Some folks are like reading those crazy long privacy policies, or at least trying to before snoozing off. Am I right? And there are real concerns, you know? Every bit of data is a piece of you, and throwing that out there willy-nilly, it could bite us back. Identity theft, data breaches, and lack of control over our personal info. That's no joke, dude.
Definitely, Simon, the risks are as real as they come. It's like playing hot potato with your own identity. But then, who's actually responsible for keeping all that info safe, you know? Is it on us to use duct tape and hope for the best, or should Big Brother be stepping up here?
Oh, Big Brother stepping up? I mean, wouldn't that be great? It's kind of like when you're a kid and you mess up real bad, hoping your parents will swoop in and, just make it all better. Except this time, the mess up is like everyone's digital footprints everywhere, and mom and dad are the folks running the show with all the tech. Not sure they got the memo on how to clean this mess, though. They sort of caused it?
Man, that's a curveball right there. So what you're saying is the people in charge of cleaning house are kind of the party makers too. Like leaving us with this hangover of data concerns, but no clear way to detox, that's rough. It's like they gave us the keys to the castle, and now we're finding out it's a little bit haunted. Makes me think, gotta be crafty about protecting our own digital turf. Huh?
Man, ain't that the truth? But let's sprinkle in some facts here because context is king, right? So the Panopticon was this prison design where one guard could watch all inmates without them knowing if they were being watched at any moment. Now slap that onto our reality. We've got CCTV cameras, smartphones, social media, kind of the same vibe. Here's a crunchy fact for you. The UK is one of the most surveilled nations, with an estimated 5 million cameras. That's like one camera for every 13 people. And speaking of phones, it said we interact with our cell phones an average of around 2,617 times daily. Think about the data trail there. Every swipe, search, and selfie kind of feeds into this invisible digital profile that's just floating around out there. And then there's social media. It knows you better than your closest pals, probably. They say if you like enough stuff on Facebook, the algorithms can get your personality down pat, like almost creepily so. So yeah, we're not just talking camera shenanigans. It's a whole ecosystem keeping tabs on us. It's like we're living in a digital snow globe, with tech giants and governments shaking it up just to see how we all fall.
Yeah, Simon, that's some crunchy info for sure. But let's not forget, folks aren't just numbers on a screen, right? We've got this thing called agency. Sure, the UK's CCTV heavy, and our phones are like needy pets. But here's a thought. What if we start messing with the system a bit? Like, the more unpredictable, the better. Think of it. Use cash instead of cards sometimes. Leave your phone at home. Go old school. It's not all doom and gloom. There's got to be cracks in this digital panopticon where personality shines through, kind of like rebelliously wearing mismatched socks because you can. Could be empowering, choosing when to engage with the tech and when to go rogue. Might not solve it all, but it's something, right?
You bet it's something. It's like throwing a wrench in the matrix. Keep 'em guessing, I say. Throw on a cloak, go pay with pennies for your coffee. That'll stir the pot.
For real? That's kind of wild. So we're talking like one camera for every 13 people out there in the UK? That's intense, man. And I got to wrap my head around this phone stat. Over 2,000 interactions a day? It's like we're on autopilot just feeding the beast with our digital breadcrumbs. But yeesh, the Facebook thing, to think algorithms could know me better than my mom does. Well, that's unsettling, man. Like, are we trading privacy for convenience without even realizing the cost here? Feels like it might be time to reassess our tech love affair, huh?
So yeah, hammering home on this tech love affair thing, it's kind of like we're all walking around with blindfolds on, just taking what's dished out without a thought, right? But peep this. Studies suggest that surveillance, even just the feeling of being watched, changes how people behave. Kind of like when you tidy up before guests come over, except it's your behavior 24/7. And it's not just in public. It's our smart devices at home too. Alexa and her smart buddies are always listening, just waiting for their wake-up call. It's easy to forget they might be picking up more than your shopping list, possibly every dumb joke, squabble, or midnight snack confession. It's like every piece of data is a thread, and they're quietly weaving this invisible tapestry that's got your whole life pattern on it. So while we're reaping the benefits, whatever that means, someone, something, some big data beast has pretty much got us figured out. We should be asking, is that convenience worth the price tag of our privacy? And like maybe we need to press pause and consider rolling back the show a bit.
Absolutely, Simon. Tidying up our acts because we got big data's eyes on us changes the whole game. It's like being in a behavioral experiment without signing up for it. Constantly watched, constantly analyzed, you lose a piece of that spontaneous human spirit. And with every smart device at home dialing into our daily quirks, yeah, there's this trade-off between convenience and privacy on loop. Is it worth it? Well, that's the million-dollar question we've got to chew on. But tell me, are we going to let our lives be some entity's knitting project or what? Where do we draw this line in the digital sand?
Huh. Speaking of having eyes all over the place, ever think about how this is just like old school spy flicks, except we're all wearing the wire voluntarily? Makes you wonder if we ever really learn from history or just put a high-tech spin on it and call it innovation, right?
Yeah, that's a heck of a thought. It's like even with history as a teacher, I'm not sure we're ace students here. East Germany's Stasi keeping tabs on citizens with an iron grip and whatnot. We've sort of walked into that territory again, but this time with our eyes wide open, clutching our smartphones. These days, it's less about secret police and more about seductive tech getting us to spill the beans. You know, do we really get the lesson from back then? Or are we just remixing old tactics with new tools? The trust in governments is all shaky now because of these moves. Makes you think, what's different besides the tech? Are we cool with a trade-off that could have serious déjà vu vibes from those past surveillance states?
It's wild because when you get down to it, what's changed isn't much, right? The Stasi had files on everyone. Today, it's digital. A click, not a cabinet away. Back then, if you said the wrong thing, neighbors might rat you out. Now we just post our hot takes online without blinking. But here's the kicker. The Stasi made people paranoid, watching over their shoulder and stuff. Nowadays, we're just numb to it. Like, oh, another data breach? Pass the salt? Probably, because it's wrapped in shiny tech and apps. So yeah, trust towards those in power is shaky because it feels like the more things change, the more they stay the same. But sneakier. Like, hello, are we not seeing this?
You nailed it. It's like what we haven't changed is the instinct to peek to each other's business. It's just that now everyone can do it without needing a trench coat and dark glasses, right? And with the Stasi, people were aware of the fear, the paranoia was tangible. But today, we sort of shrug off privacy concerns because our gadgets make life easy. But let me add some clarity. It ain't all bad. This isn't Cold War 2.0 with tech giants as the puppet masters. Yet, just got to keep asking, where's the line, and do our digital choices push us closer to or further from those shadowy Stasi days?
Oh, Joe, cracking this nut takes us on a history detour. So here's the scoop. East Germany's Ministry for State Security, aka Stasi, ran one of the most extensive surveillance operations ever. We're talking about a network with tens of thousands of full-time agents, plus hundreds of thousands of informants. Could you imagine that many snoops? Practically everyone could be watching or listened to. Harsh buzzkill, right? They kept detailed records on citizens, often based on personal vendettas, which just fueled mistrust among folks. Now fast forward and enter the digital age where our data paints a full-on HD picture of our lives. But there's no easy escape button here. Lessons learned? Well, historically, pervasive spying crushed morale. Trust took a nosedive. For today, mix those tactics with techies. It's easy access to vast info without much effort on their part. Difference is, now we say yes, please, entering our digits and deets willingly into shiny apps, often without knowing how deep it runs. The key point ain't to be a doomsday caller, but to figure if we're slyly tiptoeing into what we once feared. Not cool, huh?
Yeah, Simon. So we've come full circle with a tech twist. The digital dossier is the new Stasi file. Spooky thought, huh? Makes you ask, are we just serenading our own watchdogs thinking we're at karaoke night or something?
So this one time, like I was on vacation, right? And I'm at this little cafe tucked away in the corner of this old town. Super quaint. Suddenly I get this weird hunch that someone's kind of eyeing me. And man, it's like not the pleasant, oh, hey, you're interesting look, but that I've got my peepers on you vibe. So I start to play this little game. I shift seats, pop out for a minute, leave my hat on the chair, kind of making these small moves, trying not to trigger any alarms while seeing if iDude follows suit. Lo and behold, he's onto every gesture, moving just as I do, and I'm thinking, what gives? The feeling stuck with me, right? Later on, when I tell a local about this, they burst out laughing, like full belly laugh. Turns out this guy is the owner's hubby, and he's notorious for guessing what coffee people want before they order. Bit of a party trick. But here's the kick. It sort of made me wonder, how many times do we move through life throwing glances over our shoulders without knowing the story? It was a harmless cafe dude, but the Stasi stuff wasn't harmless. Far from it. They say knowing history helps avoid repeats, but sometimes it looks like we need reminding, even when the signs are, brewing right under our noses. Or cups in my case.
Haha, man, talk about strangely brewed paranoia. But hey, that makes me think, how much of our daily surveillance is harmless versus something more invasive? There's a line, but where? And how often do we miss it until hindsight kicks in?
Yeah, Joe. Good point. Like the difference between benign and Big Brother levels of watching is super blurry these days. With the Stasi, the line was clear because it was drawn by fear. But now, it's kind of like when you slowly turn up the water temp. Before you know it, you're in a boiling pot. So we've got this cooking pot of privacy issues, right? And nobody's feeling the heat because we're busy liking pics and streaming tunes. And maybe ignoring that nagging voice in our heads asking if convenience is worth our digital souls. We laughed at people who taped their webcams. But who's laughing now, huh? Post-Snowden, post-data scandals. Seems every time we think we find the line, it moves. Is it behind us or always just ahead? Kind of like chasing our own data-driven tails here.
Man, the real kicker? We don't tape our lives shut from tech. It's like streaming our reality show 24/7 with no breaks. Anyone else feel their inner rebel itching for a little underground movement to take back privacy? The great unplug, anyone?
Right? Okay, like this one time, I realized my phone was picking up stuff it shouldn't be picking up, like ads for things I chatted about but never searched. Creepy coincidences, you know? So I start this little personal experiment, the Great Simon Unplug or whatever. I ditched the smart tech for a week. Man, it felt like going back to the dark ages, using landlines and paper maps. Ha! But there was something kind of liberating about it. Detoxing from digital eyes. And then, bam, a friend sends a message wondering why I fell off the grid. It's like suddenly I'm on the missing persons list just cause I stopped sharing every step of my day. The value in that? Well, I guess it shows how deep we're tangled in the web. Like maybe our guard is down because even a mini revolt against the system flags us as oddballs. Makes you think maybe being watched less could actually bring more connection somehow? Back to human basics. Less Stasi-like dossiers. You know what I mean?
Ha! The great Simon Unplug. That's classic. It's like you hit refresh on real life. There's something raw about reconnecting with our unplugged selves. But then being MIA sends out an APB. That shows we're in this web way deep. Maybe bouncing back to basics is what we need more of. Not just to ghost the high-tech Stasi vibe, but to remember what it feels like to be truly offline. So are we ready for a full-scale tech detox? Or what do we lose if we go radio silent?
You know, speaking of being unplugged, we dodge facial recognition that way, right? Ha! But hear this. I got a pal who, trust me, could be a doppelganger for some celeb. So he's walking through the mall, and this ad kiosk using face scans starts offering him VIP event invites, personal trainers, stuff usually reserved for the high rollers. Turns out the facial recognition software pegged him as this star. Talk about awkward flattery, huh? Got any wonky AI tales up your sleeve, Joe?
Oh, totally. I've seen some hilarious glitches. Like this one girl who got flagged by her own phone security because it couldn't handle the new haircut. Or, better yet, there was this guy in my gym whose Face ID kept matching him with a different member, at least once a week. And don't get me started on cultural stuff. In some places, these mishaps, they're no biggie, gets shrugged off, right? But try that somewhere else and watch people lose their minds over privacy invasion. It's a serious comedy of errors sometimes, how much stock we put into imperfect tech calling the shots on who we are.
Ha, man. Imagine you're fluffing your hair or whatever, and your phone's like, who dis? New phone. Like the very device that's seen you in all your double chin glory suddenly gives you the cold shoulder. And at the gym, that's like having a workout twin. It's all reps and recognition till the machine snitches on ya. Like, nah, Brad goes heavier, bro. These AIs need an eye check more than my Uncle Ronnie, and he thought his cat was a Roomba.
Yeah, it's like your trusty gym buddy just ups and joins the witness protection program or something. Like every time you need it most, technology pulls a prank on you. It feels so personal, right? Just when you thought your tech knew you better than your mom. It's nuts how we went from, cool, my phone recognizes me, to, yo, are you for real? How do you not see this is my face? Total emotional roller coaster. It makes you want to sit down with your gadgets for a serious heart-to-heart about your relationship goals. And don't get me started on Uncle Ronnie mistaking his cat for a Roomba. That alone could spawn a whole sitcom series, The Misadventures of Ronnie and Whiskers. It brings home how even the smartest gizmos are still pretty dumb at reading us. So thinking about it makes me feel, I don't know, kinda amused, but also a tad betrayed, like when your dog thinks the doorbell is an intruder every single time.
That's just bananas. Your phone stumping you for a stranger just 'cause you snipped your locks? Tech's got some serious catching up to do. And at the gym, having an exercise doppelganger. What a trip. Man, and Uncle Ronnie with the cat Roomba mix-up. Like, can't even handle it. Hilarious. It really shows, though, how we're still teaching these machines what's what. They're like toddlers, getting all mixed up. Baby steps, AI, baby steps. But hey, I'm all in for a good laugh when tech faceplants. Keeps us humble, reminding us who's actually behind the wheel. And if it means sitcom gold like Ronnie and Whiskers, Sign me up for binge watching. These glitches, they're like those blooper reels. Just can't help but crack up, right?
For sure, Simon. It's like we expect laser precision and get a comedy show instead. For real, though, each goof teaches tech to get smarter. Each error, that's data. It's kinks getting ironed out live. And these bloopers humanize our gadgets a bit, reminds us they're tools, not oracles. Plus, humbling moments with tech, like the Face ID fails, keep us in check. Reminds you that there's a limit to trusting your entire digital life with these gizmos, at least until they learn the difference between a fresh fade and total stranger vibes, right?
Yeah, Joe, I get that errors improve the system and all, but it's sort of like feeding gremlins after midnight. Things can go sideways real quick, you know? When my phone unlocks for another dude just 'cause he's sporting the same dope beard as me, that's more than a hiccup. It's identity theft waiting to happen. It's like we're teaching AI with our every move, but what about privacy mishaps in the meantime, huh? Guess there's a fine line between a good old face recognition blooper and stepping into some serious sci-fi conspiracy. We laugh now, right? But when your car refuses to start because you shaved or your smart home locks you out in the cold, I bet it won't be as funny then. These daily tech fails, they say, chill, humans still on top. But for how long before the bloopers become like actual headaches? No kidding?
Yeah, Simon, I hear you. But consider the flip side, the whole privacy versus safety debate, right? Like some folks argue that face rec tech can track down bad actors, find missing people, big wins for public safety. And stats do back it up in some cases. There are cities out there where crime rates dropped because suspects got ID'd fast. So this isn't just theoretical, it's actual results. We're talking real-world impact, not just worst-case what-ifs. Sure, civil liberties are critical, no question there. But imagine a world where, like, you never lose a kid in a crowd, or we catch every mugger. It's the kind of future that could change the game for the better, right? It's why this tug of war gets so tangled. There ain't an easy answer when you weigh personal freedom against, potentially saving lives. Gets messy, but definitely a convo worth having.
For sure, Joe. Gotta admit, there's this shiny side to the tech coin, like superhero level stuff saving the day. Catching crooks, finding lost kiddos, that's no small fries. But yeah, it's this messy spaghetti of pros and cons where not one size fits all when talking about our faces being the keys to, well, everything. Creates this sort of futuristic utopia-dystopia blend, doesn't it? Anyway, man, this facial rec tech, it's like we're living in a sci-fi flick, huh? And these fails, they're golden nuggets telling us AI's still got training wheels on. Just hoping they don't roll over our privacy in the process, you know? I wonder what the folks at home think about trading some laughs for safety.
Man, we're treading on thin ice here, aren't we? Like a privacy versus security dance-off where nobody wants to step on toes, but someone's got to win. It's less about if we share data and more like how much is too much before we're living in that legit 1984 Orwellian world. Creepy, right? Let's turn up the heat on this debate.
Yeah, I mean, it's like walking a tightrope with gale force winds shaking the line. Reminds me of this story from my past, right? So, like, when I was a kid, we had these neighborhood block parties, classic fun, and super safe because everyone looked out for each other. But there was this one dude, Mr. Henderson. He put up this huge fence and cameras all over his place, like Fort Knox kind of stuff. Said it was for our safety, but what it did was cut us off from him, and vice versa. Sure, we wanted to be safe, but not at the expense of feeling like we were under watch 24/7. We ended up having less block parties, the vibes changed, man. It's like Mr. Henderson's security gig stirred up more questions about trust. Exactly the thing we're jawing about with this data sharing mess. It's important to feel secure, sure, but not locked away in our own personal prisons, you know? Kind of puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure, Simon. I think that Mr. Henderson's story really paints the picture. We see it's like a balancing act. Too much security, you're cut off. Too little, you feel exposed. It's kind of about finding this middle ground where people don't lose their sense of freedom, but they're still safe. Like when we talk about public safety and surveillance, the key is transparency, right? People should know what data gets collected, how it's used, who has access to it, that sort of thing. And education is a big piece too, especially with kids growing up in this digital age. They got to learn the ropes of privacy early on. Encryption, strong passwords, the works. So it's critical to keep pushing for that balance between staying open with one another and not turning our backs, to make sure these tools are helping us without ripping up our basic rights to privacy. It's sticky because nobody wants to live in Fort Knox, but nobody wants to be vulnerable either. Damned if you do, and well, you know the rest.
Oh man, I hear what you're saying, Joe, but like it feels like we're handing over the keys to our personal kingdom every time we agree to more surveillance, you know? Transparency? Sure, it sounds good. But who's checking the checkers? Kids learning about privacy. That's a winner idea for real. But ain't it weird teaching munchkins about encryption before they even learn cursive? Or do they even teach that anymore? Feels kind of backwards when it's all, here's how to shield your diary from Big Brother. Who would have thought our bedtime stories would turn into tutorials on data protection, right? It's this funky puzzle with pieces that don't quite fit. You got freedom on one side and security locking down the other, and we're in the middle trying not to get squeezed. But hey, striking that balance, isn't that where the adventure is at? It's no merry-go-round. It's a roller coaster. And dude, we gotta ride it with our hands up. Just hope we don't fly off the rails, you know?
I'll throw you a curveball, Simon. Maybe this security mess is just evolution playing out. I mean, cave dwellers didn't worry about privacy, right? Now we've got digital caves. We're adapting, evolving perils included. We might just be on the brink of redefining what security even means in our world. Wild times, buddy.
Oh, for sure. Modern cave people with Wi-Fi and worries. It's like our digital caves got glass walls now. Wild times indeed, Joe. We're not just evolving, we're living in a tech petri dish. So what's the next step in this digital evolution? Do we grow webbed fingers for faster typing or what?
Webbed fingers, huh? That's a take. But seriously, what's next? I guess the real evolution here is in our behavior. We've seen it, we're way more cautious about the data trails we leave everywhere. Like there's this push to get smart on digital literacy, because knowing is half the battle, right? And talk about balance. I think it comes down to decision making. Every app install, every share, that's us voting for the kind of digital world we want to live in. So if we want that balance, it's like a conscious choice we make daily. It's going to need some solid effort, though, patching up laws, building awareness, holding tech giants accountable. And it goes back to basics, too. Stuff like teaching kids not how to hide, but how to be savvy netizens. So yeah, we're knee-deep in this shift where forgetting your phone feels riskier than leaving your house keys behind, which is kind of insane, right? We're juggling our lives with these pocket computers, and man, I just hope we don't drop the ball on freedom for convenience's sake. What a time to be alive.
Digital literacy, yeah, that's a biggie. We're all like kind of fumbling around, trying to grab onto anything that feels safe. Teaching savvy netizens, huh? That's prime stuff right there. Imagine, instead of hide and seek, kids are playing find the phishing scam. Kind of crazy if you think about it. And every click being a vote, that's deep, man. Seriously, it's easy to forget that every app we download, every I agreed app we tick without reading, that's us building this digital house we all gotta live in. All these techie choices tangled up with freedom and convenience, it gets my gears grinding. It's wild, Joe. Like, do people really even want to balance freedom and security, or are they just hitting accept on life's terms and conditions without peeping the fine print, you know? But hey, speaking of balance, how about the whole deal with companies saying they protect our data and then, oops, another leak? If our wallets were as loose at holding coins as systems are with data, we'd all have holes in our pockets. Gotta wonder where we draw the line before it's like, wait, did I sign up for reality TV, my life edition?
Oh, definitely. It's like we're on a merry-go-round of trust with these companies. Every leak feels like a betrayal you didn't see coming, like catching your reflection in the mirror and realizing you've aged 10 years overnight.
Yeah, imagine that. Like you're in the Matrix, part of the system, and then bam, your job flies under the radar. No digital footprint. Now that's a disappearing act Houdini would be proud of.
You know, it reminds me of like my Uncle Ray's story. He was a fisherman, right? The guy basically vanished for weeks. No cell service, just him and the sea. Whenever he'd come back to land, whoa, it's as if he'd appeared from thin air. And this hush-hush vibe, it wasn't just cool, it was part of the job's fabric. Now, Uncle Ray, he didn't do it for grandeur. Nah, it was the quiet, the simplicity, the anonymity that kept him out there. No surveillance. His only tweets were from seagulls. You get me? Seems like today, some folks are seeking careers with the same essence, you know? Where being off-grid is part of the appeal, where they're not just a blip on some tech giant's screen. Like there's this silent poetry in their work that just doesn't fit into our digital chapters. Makes you appreciate those untraceable crafts all the more.
Totally get that, Joe. It's like these anonymity seekers are modern-day ninjas or something, slipping through the data nets. There's beauty in it, this call to go against the grain. Professions where you clock in without leaving a digital thumbprint, like craftsmen, deep-sea divers, or wildlife guides, they're harking back to a time when your work wasn't splashed over some digital wall for likes. And think about it. Historically, being discreet was just how things were done. Like that whole speak easy era, there's a value there we're missing today with everything broadcasted. We grew up learning to value the spotlight, but like maybe Uncle Ray had the right idea, finding worth in the whispers of waves instead of Wi-Fi pings. I mean, is the quest for anonymity just us trying to circle back to a life that's not just thumbnails and news feeds? Seems legit, and I'm all for it if it means remembering what genuine quiet feels like, you know?
Yeah, there's something to that, Simon. The digital age brought us closer. Yeah, but some folks are like, nah. They're pushing back for a taste of that old school privacy. You know, it's not just romantic, though. Some jobs need that cloak and dagger approach for serious reasons, like confidential informants or political activists in dicey places. And hey, what about those writers who use pseudonyms? It's their way to speak freely without the backlash. But listen, it's not all deep-sea diving and wildlife trips. Sometimes it's as simple as craving a space where Google can't find you. A personal space isn't just physical anymore, it's digital too. And historical contexts? They were onto something. Forget about speakeasies, think live-easies. Under the radar meant peace of mind. Not every move needed an audience. That's why I can't help but question if we're hustling backward with these online personas. Are we trading our inner peace for logins and likes? So, talk about a tightrope, the art of staying relevant while invisible in a world that notices when you don't post your breakfast. It's one wild puzzle, man.
Totally. And who'd have thought that in a world begging us to share everything, becoming invisible would become the new cool? It's like deciding not to post your breakfast makes you an international man of mystery.
Right, it's like in a sea of oversharing. The quiet ones become the enigmas, the rebels of our time. Suddenly being unreachable makes you the most sought after. It's quite the paradox.
Man, it's a world flipped on its head, huh? All these digital breadcrumbs we drop, kind of like Hansel and Gretel, but for data trackers. And there's our rebels, just munching their toast in peace, saying, "Find me if you can," but not actually telling you where they are, because that'd defeat the purpose. Classic move. Makes you wonder if getting lost is the new GPS.
You're onto something, but I'll play devil's advocate here. See, this whole getting lost is the new GPS vibe. It's cool, sure, but let's be real. Not everyone can afford to go off-grid, like it's some luxury. Sure, our digital Hansel and Gretels are out there avoiding data traps, which is smart. But flip that, some jobs thrive on exposure. You think any influencer would swap their likes for anonymity? That's their bread and butter. And here's a thought. What if going invisible isn't rebellion, but it's just, another trend? Like how organic suddenly became a thing. I'm so under the radar could just be the next I only eat kale. Still, there's got to be respect where it's due. People carving out these undetectable careers, they're making hard choices in a society that rewards oversharing. It takes guts to say, nah, not going to broadcast my life. The mystery of where in the world is Carmen Sandiego made her a legend. So maybe these low-key pros are kind of catching on to that game, the allure in silence. It's like we're rediscovering stealth as a superpower when everything else is loud. Makes you appreciate the hush sometimes.
Yeah, gotta say I'm in the deep end with that. Anonymity isn't just for the artsy fartsies or boutique careers. It's not all smoky jazz clubs and mystery novels. And, you're right about it being a luxury sometimes. Going off grid is swell if you can swing it. But it's no small feat when you've got bills screaming louder than your craving for quiet. So, okay, influencers, big whoop, they need that exposure like fish need water. But for some, silence ain't a trend. It's survival. It's about keeping your head down, doing your thing without leaving a wake. And aside from staying out of the digital limelight for kicks, there's serious stuff, like avoiding nasty corporate giants or snoopy governments. No wonder some folks want to be invisible. It's like putting on an invisibility cloak every time you step into the office. Like, we can chew the fat about how cool and trendy it is to be undetectable. But the real talk? It's about choice and control in a world always itching to pin you to a board. Call it rebellion, call it fashion, but without these silent players, we'd lose a chunk of what makes us, human, the spice of mystery.
Think about it, Simon. Being off-grid's almost exotic now. Makes you wonder, in our overshare culture, if we'll start romanticizing bank robbers for their stealth moves instead of just their heists.
Oh man, Joe, think about that. Some of the coolest folks may be the ones we've never even heard of because they're too busy being undercover artists.
So here's the thing. I was at this tiny, hole-in-the-wall jazz club last weekend. Super secretive spot. My buddy had to literally show a playing card to get us in. The musicians were insane. All right, they played like their lives depended on it. But check this. Nobody there knew their names. It hit me then. These artists might never play Madison Square Garden or have their names lit up on a marquee, but that's not what drives them. They're pure craftsmanship personified. This saxophonist, his fingers moved so fast it was like he was casting spells. And you could tell it wasn't for the applause. It was for the sheer, love of the game. Now draw that line to these secret artisans we're talking about. Maybe recognition isn't their finish line. Their trade secrets, be it lockpicking or safe-making, still stand as testaments to unspoken genius, just like those jazz players. The digital transparency push, it kind of nudges them out of the spotlight, or maybe keeps them in their preferred shadows. Maybe society's craving for constant exposure is, ironically, their shield, letting them keep crafting in peace while the rest of us pose for the gram.
Look, I hear ya, but let's flip the script for a sec. True, those jazz musicians are probably happier than a cat with a laser pointer just playing in their cozy corner. But let's not ignore that everybody needs a nod now and then, even secret artisans. It's all fun and games to praise the nobility of anonymity, but come on. If you're crafting something mind-blowing, a tiny part of you, I don't care who you are, wants someone else to go, whoa. It's human nature, man. Acknowledgement. It oils the gears or whatever. These obscure professions, lock-picking, safe-making, they're wicked cool. They operate in the shadows, sure. But chuck them in a world that doesn't ever peep into those shadows, and would they still, I don't know, get the same zap from what they do? This push for digital everything, it's a kind of big brothery, but on the other hand, it forces these under-the-radar craftsmen to up their game, keeps them inventing new ways to stay one step ahead of the limelight. Without some level of recognition, even quiet geniuses might start asking, why bother? And the thing is, with social media shoving everyone front and center, there's this rebellious cool in dodging the flash. But come on, we can romanticize the hidden life all day. In the end, a pat on the back, even a quiet one, it's gold for anybody who's poured their soul into their craft. Anonymous or not, something's gotta give. We can't all be Batman lurking in the night, right?
Sure, everyone wants that sneaky nod of approval, Simon, but what if the real thrill for these guys is in knowing something no one else does? There's mastery and mystery.
Oh, mastery and mystery. You're onto something. Maybe the real jackpot for them ain't the applause. It's holding cards so close, even Vegas is jealous.
So yeah, the thing is, mastery isn't just about the skill. It's the journey, right? Picture this. An artisan has dedicated years, maybe decades, to their craft. The knowledge they've built, that's not just how-to manuals we're talking, but like real wisdom. This safe maker or lock picker keeps evolving because, well, locks get better and safes get tougher. It's not about trumpeting their genius to the world, though. Their quiet satisfaction comes from knowing they can pick any lock or build an unbreakable safe. And here's a curveball. Not being known could mean they're free to fail, push boundaries without the peanut gallery judging every slip-up. It's liberating. Instead of applause, their currency's the thrill of cracking codes no one else can touch. But hey, listen, they're still human. So yeah, recognition matters at some level. Everyone wants their whoa moment. Yet for our cloak and dagger artisans, I reckon the game's sweeter when the crowd doesn't know who's playing. It's not Vegas, it's more like a shadow dance where the dancers relish the steps, not just the bows. Kind of poetic when you think about it.
Poetic's one thing, Joe, but let's get real for a sec. Think about this. Sure, the shadow dance is cool and all that jazz, but crack codes in secret forever? Somewhere, deep down, they gotta want their Da Vinci moment, right? Imagine crafting the world's most intricate lock. Word on the street, it's unpickable, if streets even knew about it. There's gotta be a tiny voice whispering, hey man, wouldn't it be nice if someone out there knew you were the Houdini of locks? The secret artisan vibe, it's got its charm, no doubt. Like these folks are the ninjas of craftsmanship. But come on, what good's being a ninja if nobody ever knows there's a shuriken with your initials somewhere out there? It ain't just about applause or some ego trip either. It's about sharing a part of human brilliance. If everybody operated like bats in the belfry, we'd miss out on learning from each other, getting inspired, and hey, maybe even inspiring others. Anonymity's got its place, like superheroes need alter egos. But even Batman had Alfred, and, well, Gotham generally knew someone was saving their bacon, huh? Even masked heroes need at least one head to nod their way.
Ah, sure, they might crave a nod for their work. But isn't it more tantalizing to think there's a secret society of artisans out there shaping the world quietly, their legacy whispered through the shadows? What if their real thrill is in knowing that every locked safe is an unsung sonnet to their skills? It's all whispers and wonder, man.
Maybe. But what if there's like some Da Vinci Code level group, where these artisans are the puppet masters, playing 4D chess with their creations while we're here just figuring out checkers?
Yeah, Simon, that reminds me of this one time. So, I'm at this escape room, right? A pretty intense one. And there's this puzzle, looks like a regular old bookshelf, nothing flashy. But man, the craftsmanship in that thing, unbelievable. Each book, it's like a precise key, part of a bigger riddle. We spent ages on it. When we finally cracked it, behind it was this whole other world of puzzles, much more complex, all hidden in plain sight. I stood there thinking about the person who designed it. Like their name wasn't anywhere, but the work spoke volumes. This artisan, we never knew who they were, and probably never will. But the experience they created made that bookshelf compelling, a piece of art, really. It changed the game, literally turned the room into 4D chess. So whether or not these guys get direct recognition, they're definitely playing at a level most of us can't even see. They craft these intricate locks, safes, you name it, knowing the secrets stay with them, shaping experiences from the shadows, much like my bookshelf builder. They don't need their Da Vinci moment, because every crafted piece is a silent testament to their genius. Their 4D chess move isn't in needing the spotlight, but in bending our minds without us ever seeing their hands. That's some next-level play, if you ask me.
And that's the beauty in it, isn't it? These secret artisans leave us with more than just the locks and puzzles. They leave us pondering, guessing. Who are these modern-day Houdinis, huh? Their silence is their signature, leaving us all to wonder about the hands behind the curtain. What next-level craft will they think of tomorrow, right?
Haha, you know this talk about secret artisans has me thinking. Imagine a world where your favorite comedian, the one who slays at the stand-up circuit, is actually like an undercover superhero by day. That's their alter ego, making folks laugh by night, saving them by daylight, like some kind of covert comic crusader.
So picture it. On stage, he's all punchlines and pratfalls, getting those belly laughs. But as soon as the mic drops, it's like, cape on, up, up, and away. Bam! He's out rescuing kittens from trees or stopping bank heists. His jokes could even be peppered with little hints of his double life, and only he knows they're not just jokes. There's some serious stuff folded in there amongst the chuckles. It'd be like if Clark Kent used his news articles to drop Superman inside scoops, only way funnier. Movies and books love this shtick, right? The hidden depth behind the clown face. And our covert comic? He's balancing the limelight and the shadowy alleyways, tightrope walking right between public hilarity and secret heroics. Heck of a day job, that is.
Ha, right. Because who says you can only wear one hat, or cape for that matter? This covert comic, let's call him Captain Chuckle, it ain't just about the undercover excitement. It's about layers like onions or parfaits. Everybody loves parfaits. Our man Cap is dealing out giggles and justice in equal doses. He connects with us on stage, right? Spreading joy, getting all deep without anyone guessing his silent guardian bit. It's wild when you think about it. There on screen, in books, we're cheering on characters juggling secret identities. But what if they're already walking amongst us, eh? Maybe that barista drawing smiley faces on your lattes moonlighting as a caped maverick. Captain Chuckle, though, he's a defining duality, script flipper extraordinaire. Dual-wielding humor and heroism, he's crafting punchlines with a purpose, saving the day with a smirk. Sounds like the kind of mix-up that could spark an unmissable movie or bestseller to me. Ambiguity with a chuckle. Now that's a story angle worth exploring.
Oh, hey there, new listeners. You've just jumped into the middle of something kind of awesome. We're riffing on this funny idea. What if a stand-up comic were actually a secret superhero? Yeah, like he's cracking jokes under the spotlight at night, but during the day, bam, he's out being all heroic in the shadows. We're calling him Captain Chuckle, 'cause why not, right? Dude splitting his time between serving laughs and, justice. And, it got us thinking about how often we see this sort of thing in movies and books, you know? Those characters with these elaborate double lives that keep us all hooked. It's all lighthearted stuff, imagining our favorite funny men as undercover crusaders. Like picturing that everyday Joe who might just be, I don't know, Batman when no one's looking. Just think about that for a second. It's wild, right? So stick around, because this convo's just heating up.
But hold on. Imagine being in the audience, totally clueless, as Captain Chuckle drops hints about his hero escapades between jokes. There'd be this collective aha moment when the secret's out, and everyone realizes they're laughing in the presence of a legend.
That's exactly it. You're sitting there, right? Drink in hand, chuckling away to his one-liners and bombshells. Then suddenly, it hits you. Those aren't just jokes. They're like his real-life superhero diary entries. Makes you wonder, huh? How many times have we heard something on stage and it flew over our heads when it was like more than a punchline?
Right. So, let's dial into that for a sec. It's funny, like literally, even the thought of Cap Chuckle sneaking in his real hero capers into a tight five at the comedy club. People would be none the wiser. But you know what gets me? Here we are, munching on popcorn, laughing our heads off, not seeing the forest for the trees. Or in this case, the superhero for the stand-up. Ain't it just like us to miss the profound because it's wrapped in a joke? It's fascinating when you pull at that thread, like, why do we find it so hard to see beyond the stage persona? Is the truth too mundane without a punchline? Or is reality sometimes too intense that we need the laugh to even swallow it down? Still, if Captain Chuckle is out there, dropping stories of daring rescues between jokes about dating apps and autocorrect fails, it's a cheeky way to remind us to listen closer. We might just uncover the extraordinary hidden in plain sight, or we can just keep laughing. Either way, he's got us right where he wants us, huh?
This takes me back to this open mic night I hit up a while back. The crowd was all right, the comics, but there's this one guy, unassuming dude, right? He steps up, starts his bit, typical stuff you might say, but then he shifts gears, telling us about accidentally stopping a robbery on his jog. It was hysterical, delivered with the perfect blend of cluelessness and heroism. It gets you thinking, he's just being funny, or is there more here? We're dying laughing. but part of me wonders if there's like a dash of truth in the mix. He wraps up, everyone's clapping, cheering, and as he walks off stage, he kind of looks, I don't know, not like your average Joe hitting the punchlines, more like someone who's seen things, done things, a life far beyond our laughs. Gives a whole new depth to every chuckle that night. So yeah, maybe it's not all just smoke and mirrors. Maybe there's a hero hiding behind those hangdog eyes, and we're just enjoying the show, none the wiser.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many times have we laughed off something as a joke that was actually a true story in disguise? Maybe life's funny like that. Sometimes the best stories are hidden between the punchlines.
Speaking of hidden truths and wrapping up big stuff in small packages, it kind of nudges me towards this other thing. People are actually building these physical, like fortresses, you know? Have-and-havens to make sure those high-tech snoopers can't get a peep into their lives. Just think about it. A place where someone could keep all their secrets, even escape to, if things get dicey. Like the ultimate security blanket, but made out of bricks, steel, and savvy design, not just yarn.
I mean, we're not just talking about your run-of-the-mill panic rooms here. These sanctuaries? They've got to be tricked out with the latest in privacy tech. Think biometric locks, signal blockers, and walls that laugh in the face of scanners. People are going all out creating spaces to keep one step ahead of digital prying eyes, like real-life bat caves mixed with five-star retreats. You know, places designed with one thing in mind, keeping what's inside completely under wraps, sort of metaphorical invisibility cloaks made real. And it's not just for tycoons and spies. It's a movement reflecting our growing impulse to find refuge from this increasingly connected world. I'm seeing stories of escape routes that would make Houdini tip his hat, only they're more like GPS jammers to throw off satellites than hidden trapdoors. It's all about crafting a layer of security so tight, not even light gets out without permission. It perfectly mirrors our innate need to have something sacred and untouched, you know? A personal Valhalla where the Wi-Fi never trespasses.
Whoa. Wait. Are you saying like people can actually build spaces that are completely off the grid? That's kind of mind-blowing. Signal blockers, walls impervious to scanning. I mean, come on, it's like something straight out of a sci-fi flick. It sounds like these safe spaces are way more James Bond than I thought possible in the real world. And what's this about GPS jammers? Like, for real? So we're not just unplugging from the net, we're going nuclear on all things digital, peeping Tom? This whole deal has my brain running, man. It's a bit crazy when you think about the lengths folks go for confidentiality these days. To craft a spot where no one can intrude, not even a stray text message. Kind of makes you wonder, what would your own personal fortress look like, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Some folks out there are living in places cooler than a Bond villain's lair. Just imagine the look on a hacker's face when they find out your home sweet home is practically a digital ghost. It's the ultimate leave me alone sign. Pretty wild, huh?
Yeah, you've hit it. It's wild, and kind of reassuring to know there's tech that can make your home a ghost to gadgets. With everyone getting their kicks off social media oversharing, having an unhackable haven is like the ultimate luxury, isn't it? Privacy's becoming this rare commodity, and these sanctuaries, they're like the Fort Knox for your personal life. I guess my only hitch is, where does it end, right? I mean, sure, go dark, bathe in anonymity, but don't we also thrive on connection, sharing, being part of something bigger? There's got to be a middle ground without going full hermit mode. Like, keep your secrets, duh. But remember to come out and get some sunlight too, or you'll end up like Gollum, coveting your precious privacy.
Oh, for sure, man. Like dive too deep into this fortress of solitude jazz, and you're pretty much opting out of society. Where's the balance? These security sanctuaries, they're tight, but flip the script. Is there a point where safety turns into paranoia? Yeah, Big Brother's kind of spooky, we get it, but some sunlight wouldn't hurt. And yet, here's the kicker. These have-and-havens, they're expanding our notion of privacy in wild ways. It's not just retreats from peepers. They spotlight a craving for spaces that scream no entry to a world stuck on broadcast mode. It makes you ponder. Like, are we crafting these intricate escapes as much from others as we are from ourselves? But hey, do we want to block out every ping and ding, live like lone wolves with Wi-Fi allergies? I'm all for secrecy when needed, but let's not forget the human element. We're pack animals, after all. Hardwired for hellos and high fives, right?
Okay, gonna lay down some truth. These security sanctuaries, they're not just paranoia plays. Real fact here, a study pointed out that by 2021, there were like 35 billion IoT devices hooked up worldwide. That's a massive web of potential peepers into our lives. Also, privacy breaches, skyrocketing, my friend. Like in 2019 alone, over 7.9 billion records got exposed through data breaches. That's info ripped from the depths of, I don't know, businesses and folks like you and me. So these have-and-havens, they utilize tech like Faraday cages to block EM signals, soundproof walls to muffle eavesdropping, and materials that dampen infrared scanners, all to safeguard against digital oversight. Straight up facts. This isn't your grandma's panic room. It's a whole new level of spy versus spy architecture we've got going on here. And while we don't all need MI6 level hideouts, the rise in remote working means more sensitive infos flowing through our home networks, which ups the ante for everyone's security game, even if it's just a super strong password or VPN action at home. So, like it or not, those secret layers, they're sort of becoming a blueprint for living in tech's deep waters.
Sure, those numbers are nuts. But think about this. Maybe the ultimate hack isn't fighting tech with tech, but going so analog that you slip through the digital cracks. Classic misdirection.
Wait. Speaking of slipping through cracks, it's like we're all in some spy movie without even knowing it. Invisible ink? Encoded messages? It's not just cloak and dagger stuff from history books, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating how these throwback spy tactics have shaped the way we see comms today. Back then, using lemon juice or milk as invisible inks wasn't just cool, it was survival. Writing a message you could only see by heating the paper, that's next level. And codes, oh man, those weren't your standard Sudoku puzzles. They were the difference between dinner with friends and being uninvited to your own birthday forever, if you catch my drift. Look at agents with their coded telegrams, right? They had to be smooth wordsmiths and sneaky. It took brains, ingenuity, people figuring out whole systems for saying the big things while showing nothing. Take the Culper spy ring during the American Revolution. Those guys had a dictionary of codes before emojis were a blip on the radar. So here's the kicker. This stuff's still super relevant. I mean, yeah, now we've got encryption, but get this. It's like the digital offspring of invisible ink and codebooks. Whether it's scrambling data so it looks like gibberish without the key, or steganography, hiding messages inside images where you'd least expect, we owe a nod to those historical sneaks. The underlying game hasn't changed, right? Keep your secret a secret until it's safe. Just goes to show, sometimes looking back helps us move forward, and the crafty art of clandestine chat is still solidly in play.
Man, you ever think about the guy who figured out invisible ink? Like one day he's writing love letters in lemon juice. Next thing you know, his toaster pops, and suddenly he's like Edward Snowden with a citrus twist. Makes you wonder if he found out by accident, just dropping his sandwich on the letter, and boom, history's first self-destructing message. Honey, did you read what I... Poof, gone. Now that's privacy with a side of toast, gang.
Ah, yeah, but I gotta push back on the romanticism a bit. Our sandwich dropping guy, let's not forget, he wasn't just some lovesick poet. He was onto something big. This invisible ink thing isn't like some shoddy magic trick. It was reactionary brilliance. Imagine being in that kind of high-stakes game where one slip meant you could lose everything. These folks weren't messing around with condiments for kicks. They needed an uncrackable system. It's less about the accidental discovery and more about the reason behind its use. We've got this whimsical idea of spies and secrets, but truth is, it's not all cloak and quills. It's desperation breeding necessity. Take it to now. If someone intercepted your encrypted email because you chose password 123, things might go pear-shaped pretty fast. Same deal back then. That invisible message had to stay invisible, or else. I'll tell you, the brains behind blending science with subterfuge were genius, less accidental, and more artfully cunning. It set the stage for where we are today, thinking up ways to keep our bytes from becoming, bytes.
Right? And what if I told you some of today's top secret tech might end up as tomorrow's kid's science project? Makes you think what crazy secure comms we're concocting today that'll be totally old school for the next generation.
Yeah, like, let me tell you, when I was younger, we'd make these little makeshift time capsules, right? Nothing fancy, just stuff in a box, buried. But here's the thing, we included notes, but wrote them in this simple substitution cipher we made up. Pretty basic stuff. So fast forward 20 years, or something, we dig it up. My pal's kid is with us, and she cracks our code in like 10 minutes flat. Blew my mind. Now, apply that to today's secret squirrel tech. It got me thinking, what we see as top-tier OPSEC might just be a future playground puzzle. Makes you appreciate how rapidly we evolve in keeping our cards close, always crafting new ways to communicate on the DL, beyond prying eyes and nosy neighbors. It's a wild loop of innovation, you know?
Man, ain't that the truth? Think about it. During World War I, Houdini himself taught American soldiers escape tactics and camouflaged invisible ink techniques. They learned to write between the lines of an ordinary letter using a special solution. Or, take the Enigma machine from World War II, the Nazis' supposed unbreakable code. Dude, Alan Turing and his team at Bletchley Park cracked it, shifting the war's tide. Pure smarts transforming history. Even the CIA during the Cold War developed steganographic methods. Take photos holding a newspaper in a certain way to signal message received. Today, digital steganography hides info in plain sight on the internet. It's this mental game of cat and mouse, where every breakthrough in concealing messages spawns new tech to uncover them. Tech evolves quick, but so do our brains, figuring out how to exploit its weaknesses. Our gibberish notes as kids were like ancient Rome's Caesar cipher wrapped in sandbox simplicity. But don't knock it, it was a solid precursor to what nowadays we call public key cryptography. Who'd have thought kiddo ingenuity would be linked to modern encryption? It's like the DNA of secrecy keeps self-replicating, adapting, staying ahead, a stealthy sprint across generations.
Yeah, but let me toss this wrench into the works. So Turing smashes the Enigma, big win for the good guys and all that jazz, right? But sometimes breaking the code leads to new cans of worms. Like, after you crack it, now what? You've got an intel buffet, but if you act on everything, the enemy sniffs out that you're onto them. The trick ain't just breaking codes, it's playing it cool afterwards. Sly decisions need making to use that info without tipping your hand. Crazy pressure, huh? And look at Invisible Ink. Yeah, Houdini had swag with his secret writing lessons and escape gigs. But what about the cat whose message gets heated by accident, eh? Suddenly, your grocery list is confessing state secrets because someone wanted toast. It's tricky stuff. About those steganography tricks from the Cold War. Clever, sure, but also risky. We romanticize these techniques, but they were one slip away from a total bust. The newspaper thing. Neat in theory, but dude, vary your routine much? Now, digital steganography's flying high, the tech version of hiding a note inside a rock band poster. But here's the rub. Every method spawns counter methods. Today's covert ops become tomorrow's grade school hacking projects. Every move towards unbreakable comms primes someone else to break them. It's like this endless tango where we keep trying to step on each other's toes. Entertaining, sure, but man, the stakes are high.
But hey, imagine a world where everyone's got their own Enigma machine in their pocket, like your phone, but for uber-secret texts. No more, whoopsie, sent that to mom by mistake. Now that'd be one epic group chat, buddy.
Ha, yeah, bruh, your text vanishing app idea, patent that pronto. But I gotta say, historical spy gadgets, they make your phone's incognito mode look like amateur hour.
Oh, absolutely. So check it. Reminds me of my granddad, right? Dude was a tinkerer, the kind of guy who could fix a TV with some duct tape and optimism. One summer, he shows me this funky pen. Looked like any old pen, except it had this weird little window on the side. It's a camera, he says. My jaw hits the ground. Now, Granddad wasn't a spy, I mean, as far as I know, but that pen got me thinking about those real-deal spy pens from back in the Cold War, tiny cameras in disguise for sneaking photos where no bulky Nikon's ever gonna fit. Nuts. The wild thing is, these gadgets weren't just gimmicks. They were game changers, shifting intel wars and stuff. Real-life Q-branch gear that made Bond look pretty legit. Makes you appreciate the brains behind that old-school spy craftiness, you know? And it's funny, now everyone's got a camera in their pocket, but back then, it was straight-up Mission Impossible tomfoolery. How's that for full circle?
Right? Those spy pens were bonkers. It's like Granddad had a slice of that secret agent pie and didn't even know it. Goes to show, the smallest tweaks made history's biggest peaks.
All right, I'm going to throw a curveball here. So the spy pen cameras were slick, no doubt, but they weren't foolproof. The tech was kind of clunky by today's standards. They had to be super careful snapping a pic not to get caught. Because if you did, it wasn't just an oops, it was game over, pal. And then there's durability and picture quality. Both were sometimes sketchy. Film could get exposed or the photos came out like abstract art, which is neat for a gallery, but pretty useless for intel. Not forgetting that miniaturizing tech back then also meant compromised functionality. Smaller lenses, limited exposure settings, each gadget's tweak or concealment often sacrificed something crucial. So yeah, these contraptions are cool as all hell, but against the scrutiny of modern tech, they're museum pieces, auctionable, nostalgic, yet brimming with flaws that we take for granted today. They let us hear, sure, but let's not kid ourselves. Even Bond would struggle without his HD and Wi-Fi.
True fact is, those gadgets came with trade-offs. Take the Minox camera, state-of-the-art in the 30s and throughout the Cold War. Measuring around 10 centimeters long, it was a marvel of miniaturization. It became synonymous with spycraft, allowing agents to snap documents discreetly. A crucial detail, the film had to be developed, so getting the intel wasn't instant. Durability and functionality were also issues. Cameras had to endure rough handling in various climates while remaining inconspicuous and operational, a tall order for early tech. Modern smartphones outclass them not only in picture quality but also in storage capacity and immediate image review. And size? The smaller the tool, the more likely you'd encounter problems like poor image stabilization or light sensitivity, all critical when deciphering fine print on stolen blueprints.